Hello, hello, hello. We're back. We're back again. What was that song I was just thinking about? Well, anyway, Backstreet's Back. That's what I was thinking about. I was gonna do a
Oh, sing it, sing it, sing it.
Backstreet's Back, all right, but I don't
All
want to get
right.
copyright stricken by.
Oh man.
Oh my gosh! Imagine we get lawyers on us for singing
I
Backstreet's
know.
Back.
But what if we sing I'm back in the saddle again? I'm back.
Well, I guess we already did. So the
Oh,
Spotify's just gonna have to deal with it, I guess.
I guess
But
so.
but how are you today, my dear father? I feel like we had a conversation about me asking you how you were, and then I stopped asking you for a while, but I'd like to keep asking you. Because what if it changes one day? How will I know?
It'll never change.
But what if it does? What if you're like, every day for the last 10 years, you're like, I'm great, I'm great, I'm great, I'm great. And then one day I ask you and I'm like, how are you, father? And you're like, I am the best. I've literally the peak of human happiness right now. The
Ooh.
best possible. Someone put a burger into my hands for free. I'm having the best day of my life.
Well, that happens a lot for me, but I do just to be honest, to be perfectly honest, I did have a few moments like last week that were I mean I deal with everything. I deal with everything and I kind of make the best of everything. But last week was a bit of a hard week for me, actually.
Why do you think that was? I know your back was hurting you a little bit last week, or was that this week?
Well, yeah, my back was bugging me. A lot of things were going on. I felt like but one of my best friends I just heard last week he died of a drug overdose. Um, so I mean I haven't been in contact with him for a while, but he was like a brother to me, and so he
Mm,
died of a drug overdose. I just heard, and it just felt like it was just a lot of heavy things going on. So I actually I mean again I always kind of I can deal with anything, and I always flip it around to the best. But it was a bit of a hard week for me. Just with it felt like there's a lot of drama around me and a lot of pain and stuff like that. So it
mm.
was a little bit it was a little bit so just to make sure your listeners keep keep it in perspective that hey, I'm always gonna I'm always gonna look on the bright side of things. But again, it's not like my life is all rosy. I have to find ways of okay, you know what, you know, this guy who was like a brother to me. I mean, I love this guy, but I mean, maybe he's at peace, and it's life isn't going to last forever, and you got to find ways to reframe things so that they don't bring you down, right?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, first of all, it goes without saying, I'm sorry to hear that. And
Yeah, I would just say this. I mean, we kind of fell out of contact, right? So, but again, I mean, we fell out of contact because a lot of drama was going on, and it's
mm,
just like we couldn't be, I mean, near each other too much anymore. But I still love the guy. I will always love him.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So I just wanted to say that.
Hmm. Yeah, I know that we chatted a little bit before this about the episode that we're unpacking today, which is a continuation of another episode that we did like 10 episodes ago. But I think that's actually a really good segue into what we're talking about, and I'd like to start kind of from the end, um, because one of the things that you and I were chatting about before we got on was was just kind of how that episode ended and just really hammering home that you have to make a decision to make every day a good one. And so, just in the context of last week being kind of a downer, how did you, because it's so fresh in your mind, and I think there are some things that you do now that are just so routine that maybe you don't think about them as much, but after a week like that, how do you come into this week still like not ignoring that stuff and not repressing it, but like what is your process for having that kind of week and then moving on and on Monday saying I'm still going to have a really good day,
Mhm.
you know?
Well, let me just start by saying this. So there was that, but it wasn't just that. I mean, the way I processed that was like, wow, like I so hoped he would pull through, but he couldn't. He couldn't get himself through. But we're all gonna die. We're all gonna. None of us are gonna live forever. And I was able to process that. But again, the thing that I found hard about last week, I just want to preface this all because again, how I go through all this stuff is I still had to work with kids. I still had to be an uplifter for people. I still had to be find a place so where I'm okay. I'm going out in the world. I'm going to meet this 14-year-old kid, and then I'm going to go meet this 15-year-old kid, and then I'm going to go here and I'm going to go there. And I gotta make sure I'm grounded because I'm the anchor. I'm the anchor. That's the way I look at it for myself. Is like, so no matter what, I gotta get up and I gotta chill out and I gotta do my stretching and I gotta feed my body and I gotta have my water and I gotta go for my walk and I gotta do my workout and I gotta do all those things that ground me into me being me at my best, where I'm super self-assured and okay, we can deal with anything that this world throws at us. Um, and so that's what I do. I just ground myself back because again, my back was really in a lot of pain too, right? Because I put my back out, so I was dealing with a lot of physical pain as well. But again, I mean, okay, let's get back to the basics. Just make sure that we never lose sight of the fact that my back hurts and it's hard to lay down on the floor and stretch, but I gotta stretch. It's hard to even find a position on the couch where I can lay comfortably, but we'll find it and we'll chill out and we'll just remember this too will pass and I'm going to be stronger for it. I'm better for it. And I'm a super resilient person. And this is life. This is life. This is freaking life. It's up and down, but you're always moving forward. You're always growing. And that's just how I get through, like times that are tough. And again, it's not like it was like the toughest times of all, but it's not like, but it also wasn't a rosy week for me because there was a lot of it did feel kind of heavy for me, right?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, interesting.
You got to deal with it, right? I mean, the fact
Mhm.
is, it's life. Life's going to happen, and like I said, I think the best thing about taking the time to make it a priority to ground yourself into who you are, the best of who you are, is that life is going to be like a series of waves on the ocean. Sometimes it's going to be down, sometimes it's going to be up, sometimes you're going to be paddling, sometimes you're going to be gliding, sometimes you're going to be having fun on the way, sometimes you're going to be crashing on the rocks. But all of it, you gotta see it for what it is. You're just taking a ride on the ocean, right? You're taking a ride. It's a ride. It's not a and you got to enjoy it, right? You got to find a way of like making the best of all of it.
Yeah. Yeah, we talk a lot about, you know, putting these systems and these things in place that bring you back to at least like slightly above the happiness line where you're at least okay with being with existing in the world at this current moment. The very, very least. And it's interesting because that process is so, so, so important. And like you just basically expressed, that process is what allows you to have that kind of week and go through all this stuff and still show up for people without sacrificing yourself in the process. Because there's a lot of people that are super, super giving, but they just end up emptying their cup and never
Mhm.
refilling it. And what's interesting about this conversation and the conversation that you guys heard last week with Ivory is that it's kind of it kind of shows you how the cycle of pain perpetuates if you don't stop it. And so you always end up in this place of like pouring a little bit out, then you get a little bit in, then you pour a little bit out, and you get a little bit in, and you're always kind of like your cup is never full because every time you get a little bit in, you're pouring more out. So it just kind of highlights how important it is to have that process of like these are the things that I need to do for myself every day so that I can pour my cup out every single day. I can keep pouring all day, but I know that the next morning or at the end of the night, it's getting filled right up to the top. Like
Mhm.
it's so important. And if you never establish that, then you're always kind of running like you're just running low on gas all the
Mhm.
time forever, right?
That's why I think it's funny. People sometimes laugh. They'll be like, "Hey, what time do you get up?" It's like in the summer, I get up between 3 and 4. It's like 3 and 4. And it's like, what do you do? Why do you do that? Because between 3 and 4 until, it depends on when I start work or when my day starts. But even if it starts, doesn't my day doesn't really start till 8, you know, let's say 3 or even 7 when I was doing carpentry. 3 to 4 5 6, that's 4 hours, 4 hours. And people would think, what are you, an idiot? But it's like, no, those 4 hours, they ground me so much that I ride the waves every day. I ride the waves no matter what happens. I ride the waves because I take 4 hours before I give for those 4 hours to anybody. Like, because Shar will sit and do what she does, and I'll do what I do. We don't really interact. I mean, we wake up and hey, morning, good morning, love you, and stuff like that. But we don't sit there and talk or interact very much. I mean, we basically do our own thing. So that's 4 hours where I'm just like, you know what? I'm filling my cup up every freaking morning, and the next morning, the next morning, that, and it's absolutely shocking to me that people don't. That it's like I gotta sell people on that. I gotta sell people on like, why don't you get up early? Oh, I don't got time. It's like, how could you not? Because like, things are gonna happen. Life is gonna happen, and if you want to continue to be bashed around and experience trauma, kind of like the conversation I had with my sister, and we us both approaching it so differently. Um, yeah, I mean, or not. I mean, that was one of the things I got out of our conversation with Ivory is, yeah, our approaches to trauma are very, very different. And again, I think the one thing that I got from her was that she just doesn't find it that easy to just flip around and go another way because she's, whereas for me, it's like I I've had a lot of struggles too, like with doing it. But once I realized the key was to take care of myself first, it's like, well, I'll never give that up for anybody. I'll never give that up for there's no job, there's no amount of money, there's no nothing that I'll give that up for because it's the only way I can control my happiness. And
Mm.
and I think Ivory Tate just doesn't put as much like I think she doesn't put as much value on it, I guess, because she hasn't experienced it the way I have, right? I'm not sure. What are your thoughts on it?
Either. I think because she and I mentioned this to you the other day, she and I are so, so, so similar that like I completely see her perspective. I completely understand it. Even our stories are quite similar in some ways. Um, so it's interesting kind of hearing her have this conversation with you, and being like, yeah, yeah, actually, I get it, I get it, I get it. But then, like, I work with you, and this is the work that we do every single day, every single week since 2019, and you've been doing it for years, decades before that. But yeah, it's so interesting to be so similar to her and also have to try to see it from both perspectives, even though I understand where she's coming from, I can't agree with it because I know that it's not the way to move forward. And
Mm,
I think everybody who's in that space knows. And there's always this kind of sense of um oh, and you know what? I think we've talked about this before as well. The oh, when I this, I'll be able to this. So it's like, well, when Malcolm's a bit older, I'll have time to do this.
yeah.
Well, when I'm making a little bit more money, I'll be able to afford to do this for myself. Oh, well, when I lose a little bit of weight, it'll be easier to do this. And so we're always setting up these goalposts, but then there's all these other things in the way. So it's like, well, Malcolm's not older now. He's a child, so he still needs me. So that's not going to happen for another, 14 years. Well, great. So you kind of set yourself up for failure in a way by putting all of these goalposts up of like, when X happens, then I can do X for myself. And it's
Mm.
like you kind of just have to find something to do now. And that doesn't have to change your life right now, but like it's better to do something now than to do everything later.
Yeah, and I think you also have to have non-negotiables, right? Like you
Mm,
have to create non-negotiables for yourself. And I mean, it's funny. On one of the parts of our interview, Ivory said that my superpower is that I can kind of just make a decision or something about something and just go that
Mm,
way, right? And that is kind of a superpower, but again, it just comes down to non-negotiables. I think for me, you know, I'm able to create those non-negotiables. Like it's like, and everybody has them. It's just they don't always have the most empowering ones. Like lots of
mm-hmm,
people have non-negotiables. Like I'm going to show up at work 15 minutes early, and that's a non-negotiable. I'm going to, work at my job 40 for the next 30 years, and that's a non-negotiable. I'm going to make sure my kids are what like everybody has non-negotiables, but not everybody has non-negotiables that are empowering for them personally, right?
mm,
And I think I've always been able to create non-negotiables that are empowering for me at times, not always, but at times.
yeah.
And I think that's what it comes down to is non-negotiables. Because like, I mean, if you set with yourself and you say, well, my happiness is I got to take care of that, or my fitness is I got to take care of that no matter what. Then the circumstances, and I've always said that the diets and the exercise programs, this and that, they don't matter. The circumstances aren't going to matter because you've made a non-negotiable to yourself, and one way or another, this is getting done. And you
Mm-hmm,
do it for other, you do it. Everybody does it for something, but why not do it for in ways that are empowering to you, right? Like the non-negotiable. Like I say, for me, a non-negotiable is stretching every morning. I don't care where I am. It could be a hotel. It could be in a hospital bed. It doesn't matter. I'm stretching. Like that's a non-negotiable.
mm-hmm.
And I mean, yeah, just pick non-negotiables that are empowering to you. And but again, I think happiness should be one of them for everybody. A non-negotiable for me is that I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to feed myself up first so that I have something to give away, and that's a non-negotiable. Don't call me. Don't ask anything of me before 7 o'clock or before whatever,
Mm-hmm.
because that's my time. And unless it's an emergency, I'm not going to give you my time. And even if it is an emergency, I'm going to go back. When the minute is dealt with, I'm going back to what it's a
Yeah.
non-negotiable.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good place to kind of a good sentiment to leave people with is figuring out what those non-negotiables are that are empowering to you and that contribute to your overall happiness and mental health so that you have whatever that is blocked out for yourself. So it's not a question, and it's not something that people are like, oh well, can't you just not stretch this time, or can't you just not do that, or can't you just come in a bit early? It's like, these are my non-negotiables. I know in my heart that this is important to me, so I don't feel bad about enforcing this boundary for myself. I don't feel guilty. I don't feel like I'm unworthy of enforcing this boundary. It's not negotiable for me. These are my boundaries. Within these other parameters, I'm all yours. But just determining what those non-negotiables are and coming to a point where you can enforce them without being mean, obviously, but just knowing that it's what's right for you, I think is a good. Would you agree that that's a good place to kind of leave folks with some?
100%. I think everybody should figure out the non-negotiables and hopefully make their morning whatever their morning is. Not everybody gets up at 4, but some people they work night shifts, whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
when you begin your day, whenever you begin your day, I would say that everybody in the whole world should make the first part of their day non-negotiables that empower them because it's going to serve them so much for the rest of their life and it's going to serve everybody around them.
Yeah, I agree completely, and I have something to think on over the next couple of days, and I hope you all do as well. Do you have anything to say before we close it out?
Nope.
Cool beans. Well, I think we got it. I'm very excited because we have a new episode planned for you guys that will be another Ben and Willow interview. So I'm excited to get into that. I'm excited to bring it to you guys. I'm just excited in general. And thank you all for joining us as always. If you have questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, topics you want us to cover, please feel free to email us, DM us, reach out. We're always happy to hear from you guys. And until the next episode, we'll catch you later. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you all so much for joining us, as always. We love hearing from you, so if you have comments, questions about the episode, topics you want us to cover, or anything else, you can find us on Instagram as lovinggoliath, on Facebook as the Goliath Foundation. You can email us at lovinggoliath@gmail.com, or you can find out more information about the Goliath Foundation at thegoliathfoundation.com. Hey, did you know that 36% of our listeners tune in through Apple Podcasts? If that's you and you liked what you heard today, you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Thank you again, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.